we've seen all these vulnerabilities and all these attack types. Let's kind of put it together in one big summary list, talking about your hacking methodology. Okay, starting with footprinting the web infrastructure. This is your very first step in web app hacking. It gives us the opportunity to choose our victims and identify vulnerable web apps. It will include discovering servers, services, hidden content, and server identification. We go after attacking the web server. We identify the web server. We scan the server for vulnerabilities. We launch a web server attack, including denial of service. Potential tools: URL scan, Nikto, Nessus, Acunetics, Web Inspect, just a few tools. Now we analyze the web apps. We want to analyze app functionality and technology to identify user input entry points, server-side technology, functionality, and map out the possible attack surface. We try to attack any authentication mechanisms. So we want to exploit the way this thing was designed and implemented. So we could attack usernames. We could try to enumerate usernames. We could attack sessions. We could attack cookies and tokens. We could attack passwords. We want to attack authorization, because first you log in, authenticate, then you're authorized. So authorization, we could attack those by manipulating HTTP requests by modifying input fields. So we'll begin with access to the web app through maybe a low-level account, a low-privileged account. Then we'll escalate privilege to access the more secure resources. Types of authorization schemes include the Uniform Resource Identifier, the URI, just like the URL, parameter tampering, post data, HTTP headers, query strings and cookies, hidden tags. We want to attack how the session is managed. So we want to bypass authentication controls by breaking the app's session management mechanism. This lets us impersonate a legitimate user. So types of session management attacks: attacks on how tokens are generated, remember how I talked about predictability, or how they're handled. We could do injection attacks, all sorts of injection attacks. We're trying to break normal input by injecting malicious input. And that could include web script injection, LDAP, OS commands, XPath, SMTP, buffer overflow, or SQL injection, canonicalization. There's a whole bunch of them here. Do I expect you to know how to do every single one of these? Of course not. But realize that they exist and look for tools that'll help you do it. We could attack just plain old connectivity. The app has to connect to the database via what's called a database connection string, because usually the app is on a web server here and the database is over there, and they talk to each other across the network, usually from the DMZ to the private network. So we could attack how apps actually connect to the database. And so there are different types of database connectivity. We could have something called string injection, where we're basically putting in a phony string. We could have a denial of service attack against the app pool, or we could have connection string pollution attacks. So even between the app and the database, we could attack their connectivity. We can certainly attack the clients, because the attacker will interact with the server-side app, and the attacker will access unauthorized data and execute malicious actions. We do it by manipulating the web app client, the browser. We can do it with cross-site scripting, redirection, header injection, frame injection and overlay, request forgery, CSRF, session fixation, privacy attacks, and attacks on technologies such as ActiveX. We could attack the web services modules, not the web app, but the parts of the web server, to expose underlying business or logic vulnerabilities. So web services would include these messaging things like SOAP, or XML, which is the format for most HTML these days, or WSDL. We could probe those, try to leak information attack application logic or the database or denial of service. If you are really interested in learning about all these things, read up on how web services actually talk to each other and how they make requests to each other so that you understand some of the deeper vulnerabilities of this. It is not part of this class to go too deep into any one particular technology or protocol, but to make you aware that they exist and look for tools that will help you do this. So your web app hacking methodology can include any or all of these methods.